My name is Carson, and this is On Air with Heritage Action, a podcast built for conservatives. Twice a week, we break down some of the most important issues facing our country and talk about how you can get involved today in the fight for conservative values. Welcome back to another episode of On Air with Heritage Action. Today, we're joined by Walker Gallman, who is the manager of House Relations here at Heritage Action. He's here to talk about some of the latest headlines that we've heard over the last 36 hours with Build Back Better, reconciliation, and the CHIPS Act. Obviously, there's been a potential deal reached by Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin, which has complicated the reconciliation process a lot and Build Back Better as we thought it was. So Walker, can you just kind of break down what these bills are?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's first discuss what the reconciliation bill is. So the reconciliation bill, you're probably more familiar with it as the Build Back Better Act, or as we like to call it, the Build Back Broke Act. So let's start by first explaining what is reconciliation. So reconciliation is a procedure that allows the majority party to pass a proposal dealing with, spending or revenues along party lines. Typically, a normal bill in the Senate would require a 2/3 majority to overcome a filibuster, but this special procedure allows Democrats to move forward without any help from Republicans. So the latest iteration, which they're calling the Inflation Reduction Act, which is ridiculous because it definitely does not, doesn't do anything to reduce inflation. In fact, it would do quite the opposite. So in the bill, you've got massive tax increases, I think to the tune of about $450 billion over the next decade. However, that number climbs up to about $750 billion when you factor in the bill's drug price controls. The bill also deals with an expansion of Obamacare subsidies, incorporates a lot of Democrats' Green New Deal, and then also beefs up the IRS to give them the ability to go after and enforce things. You might remember that's kind of been problematic in the past when they targeted conservative groups previously. So that's kind of an overview there of the reconciliation bill. And then on the other side of this, we have what's known as the CHIPS Act. So the CHIPS Act is a $250 billion package that blends corporate welfare for the semiconductor industry with some industrial policy. Now, this is kind of being marketed as a way to, bolster national security and push back against China and make sure that we remain competitive. However, there's zero guardrails in the bill to make sure that that $250 billion doesn't find its way to China. And the majority of the money doesn't even go to defense-related chips. It goes to more, the kind of chips you'd find in consumer electronics. So in a nutshell, those are kind of the two proposals that we're looking at right now. Got it.
So we've heard about reconciliation for the past year or so. Mm-hmm. And from what we all read is that basically Senator Manchin, over the course of the last few weeks or months, essentially killed those negotiations. And that's why it sounds like some Republicans were comfortable getting on board with this CHIPS proposal. Although Heritage Action did key vote against the CHIPS Act, we saw kind of from the beginning how this would really hurt our country and really not do its job in standing up to China like people said it would. So can you kind of talk about the timeline of these bills and why CHIPS is even more important now than it was before?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back in time. To your point, both these bills have kind of been around since the beginning of this Congress, and negotiations have been off and on and have broken down a number of times. So with regards to reconciliation, the big hurdle there has been both Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. Democrats, again, need their entire party to pass something using reconciliation, so they have to have buy-in from their entire conference. So over, the last year or so, those negotiations have been ongoing. They haven't been able to make much progress because, again, Senator Manchin had surprisingly been a little bit responsible in wanting to hold the line on not doing more spending in the face of the massive amount of inflation we're currently experiencing. So at the same time, though, we also had negotiations on this CHIPS bill. This one, however, did have buy-in from Republicans, irresponsibly, because as you noted, we are not supportive of the bill. It's a wasteful spending of money, and it doesn't do what it purports itself to do. So as these negotiations have gone on, again, Republicans are fully aware that they have no control or no say in the negotiations over reconciliation. While at the same time, they do have some control over the CHIPS negotiations. So basically, Leader McConnell made the point that they would no longer be engaging with the Democrats in negotiations on this CHIPS package if they were going to continue negotiating on the reconciliation bill, which, again, they don't need Republicans for. So this was kind of setting the stage for where we are now. So Republicans under the impression that because of Senator Manchin, reconciliation was dead and that it wasn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. Because of that, they allowed negotiations to restart on the CHIPS package. So fast forward, and the Senate passes the CHIPS package. Fast forward maybe 1 hour later, and suddenly there's magically a deal between Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin on the reconciliation bill. And there's even text for that deal, which is incredible considering that, an hour ago there was no deal and negotiations were dead.
Yeah, apparently they did this all sort of last minute, but they still wrote this huge bill.
Right. So it's very clear that Democrats pulled a fast one on Republicans and had never actually stopped negotiating the reconciliation bill. And they just waited to get what they wanted from Republicans in passing this CHIPS package so that they could then move forward without Republicans on their reconciliation bill.
So raising taxes in the middle of a recession is obviously not a good idea. We all know that, except maybe the Democrats who seem to be in denial. But going back to the reconciliation bill, this is a huge spending bill. Aside from just, being harmful to the economy in terms of just sheer dollar amounts at a time when our economy is already suffering, can you talk about what they're trying to actually fund in it? Because a lot of these provisions are stuff the American people overwhelmingly disapprove of.
Right. So they're looking to come and take American tax dollars to the tune of about $450 billion in the next decade, or actually more realistically, about $750 billion when you factor in the bill's drug price controls that kind of function like business taxes. And so that's how they're going to fund this. Once they take all this money from you, what they spend it on is even more egregious. So you got about $369 billion in the name of decarbonizing all sectors of the economy. So really advancing large parts of their radical Green New Deal agenda. And then on top of that, you're also going to see about $78 billion for a slush fund for the IRS that allows the agency, which has a pretty dubious history of targeting political opponents like conservatives, and they'll add thousands of new agents with little accountability to go and do further enforcement. So, we're staring down the barrel of Democrats just wanting to throw more money at problems that don't really exist. As we've seen from the American Rescue Plan, which passed last year, throwing money at these problems isn't helping. That's how we arrived where we are. Inflation is at record highs because of this spending. And then to think that the way out of this is to tax Americans to get more money so that we can continue spending on top of what we've already done is ludicrous. Americans don't even have the money on hand to pay these taxes because they're already hurting so much from the inflation caused by all of the Biden administration's policies. It's egregious. It's terrible. We need to do everything we can to stop this. Everyone needs to be calling their lawmakers and making sure they're aware of how bad this is. It's unconscionable.
Right. And I think in DC, sometimes it seems to me like, especially Democrats, maybe even some Republicans, but Democrats seem to look at this like it's monopoly money. They seem to not really even notice what billions or trillions of dollars really mean. And it's easy to kind of look at that and say that's an abstract number. But when you break it down, the spending that they're doing right now, we've already seen how it causes inflation, how it hurts American taxpayers. But think about, if you're watching at home, thinking about how much more you're paying for groceries, for gas. If you're thinking about buying your first home, think about how hard that process is. It only gets worse. And it's caused by this spending. It's caused by these reckless policies that the Democrats continue to push. And it seems like they either are in denial or they don't care that it's hurting the American people, because in their mind, it's funding some broader woke ideological agenda that the American people don't even want. They can't afford it. They don't want it. But the Democrats think they can do it anyways. They think they can trick Republicans in Congress, in the House and the Senate, and they think they can trick the American people. But we need to tell our representatives, we're aware of what's going on. We're smarter than this. The Democrats should not be able to get away with this, and we need to do whatever we can to stop it.
You're absolutely right. And so in that vein, while, Republicans are limited in what they can do to stop reconciliation, because again, Democrats don't need Republican votes to pass this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those watching at home, please make sure you're calling your representatives. Whether your representative is a Democrat or a Republican, make sure your voice is heard. Make sure they know that you know what's going on and you oppose this package. And, you want to see them stand up for your economic interest and what you care about. You don't want to see your representatives funding the Green New Deal or funding some woke ideological cultural agenda, decarbonization, whatever it is, you name it, it's in there. So make sure you're engaging with your lawmakers, and we'll do everything here at Heritage Action we can to lobby on the federal level and keep folks engaged. So Walker, thank you so much again for being here. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for another episode of On Air with Heritage Action. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard in today's episode, please click the follow button. If you want to receive a text message each time a new episode airs, text podcast to 51776 and you'll never miss an episode. That's podcast to 51776. Hi, it's me again, and we need your help. If you like the insights and activist resources we are providing, please take 1 minute and help us spread the word. Share this episode with friends and family on social media, email, or text. We need everyone's help in the fight to hold Washington accountable. And don't forget, you are also able to subscribe and listen to episodes on your smartphone. Just open up your favorite podcast app and search for On Air with Heritage Action. Click subscribe and download episodes so that you can take them with you on the go. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a thing. Thanks.